CPU, also known as the Central Processing Unit, it is responsible for processing and executing instruction to the rest of the components in the build. The CPU sits on the motherboard socket. Motherboard is the backbone that ties the computer's components together at one spot and allows them to talk to each other. Think of the motherboard as the body. These come in various different sizes: the mini ITX, the micro ATX, the ATX, and the EATX. Random access memory, or RAM, is one of the most important components in determining your system's performance. RAM gives applications a place to store and access data on a short-term basis. It stores the information your computer is actively using so that it can be accessed quickly. CPU cooler. Most AMD CPUs come with a cooler, but if not, a capable one is required. A quiet and nice cooler is recommended for budget-conscious users. If the CPU does come with a cooler, a nicer option is available. GPU, or the Graphics Processing Unit. The graphics card is the most important component in a PC, providing graphics and determining game performance and rendering speed. A better card increases frame rates and render times, resulting in smoother games. The custom-modded AMD RX 6800 is ideal for gamers seeking comfortable 4K gaming. The power supply unit is crucial for a PC's stability and expansion. It's recommended to buy at least 100 watts more than needed for future upgrades. Use a power supply calculator from outer version to determine power needs. Stick to well-known brands with high efficiency ratings. Power supplies come in three types: non-modular, semi-modular, and fully modular. Fully modular supplies are more expensive. Storage. A PC needs a primary storage source such as M.2 SSDs or traditional 2.5-inch SSDs for faster boot times and loading of applications. A stylish case is essential for securing components. A Phillips head screwdriver and an empty USB drive are needed for installing the Windows operating system.
Motherboards prep. Remove the motherboard from its plastic bag and remove any extra items such as front panel, connector extension, Wi-Fi extender, M2 installation screw, I/O shield, and manual. Carefully remove the motherboard from its anti-static bag. Avoid touching the top and back components, and gently place it on top on the motherboard box to prevent damage during CPU, memory, and storage installation. CPU prep. Carefully open the CPU box and pull out the CPU from the protective case by holding it from its side. Make sure not to touch the top surface of the CPU or the bottom. Most CPUs have a triangle located on the corner. This indicates the direction you have installed a CPU on the motherboard socket. I'm gonna show you the process of installing three different CPUs. We have AMD, Intel, and AMD S33 per CPU as well.
AMD AM4 CPU installation. To install an AMD AM4 CPU, locate the golden triangle on the CPU sides and match it to the triangle on the motherboard socket. Lift the lever to the top, gently lower the CPU onto the socket and let it fall in place. Do not touch the CPU surface or apply force. Check all four sides of the CPU and gently lower the level to secure it in place. Intel CPU installation. To remove the CPU, locate the golden triangle on the bottom left corner of the socket cover. Match the triangles with the socket and CPU. Slide the lever to open the socket. Gently lower the CPU down and let it fall in place. Gently lower the cover down to ensure it sits underneath the torque screw. Lower the lever to secure the CPU in place. AMD TR4 installation. The installation of a Threadripper CPU requires the CPU itself and the accompanying install tool. Gently open the Threadripper box and slide out the CPU from the sides, avoiding contact with the CPU's surface or bottom. Loosen the socket in the order indicated, starting from 3, then 2, and finally 1. Pull up the blue tabs on the top and remove the gray protective piece. Slide the CPU against the rail slowly, starting from the top. Lower the CPU down on the socket until it clicks to tighten the top bracket in place. Repeat the process until the tools clicks using force as needed.
Memory installation. To install memory sticks on the motherboard, follow these steps. First step is find a diagram on the motherboard next to the DIMM slots. Second, position the memory sticks in the correct slots for dual channel use. The third step is to remove tabs on the slots and align the gap with the notch on the DIMM slot. The fourth step is to lower the memory stick and apply firm pressure to snap it in place. M.2 SSD installation. Most motherboards have one or more M.2 slots, usually located between PCI slots or behind the motherboard. Use the screws from the motherboard cover to unscrew the top M.2 SSD slot. Identify the notch on the M.2 SSD and insert it into the slot. Tighten the slot using the screws.
Thermal paste application. Thermal paste is essential for transferring heat from the CPU to the cooler, preventing overheating and potential damage. There are two methods to apply thermal paste. The pie dot method, which involves squeezing a small amount in the center of the CPU, and the spread method, which uses a thermal paste spatula to eventually spread the paste across the IHS. If the application is made up, use 99% isopropyl alcohol and paper towel to clean the CPU. If installing a Mac color on AMD or Intel motherboard, check if the color has pre-installed thermal paste brackets. Once the paste is applied, the CPU should be ready for installation. Stock AMD Intel CPU color install. To install a stock color in an Intel motherboard, remove all 4 screws and fold the bracket in place. Align the screw with the motherboard 4 holes and tighten the screw in a crisscross pattern. Plug the cable into the CPU pan, either on the motherboard, and manage it to avoid sticking out.
Motherboard installation. To install a motherboard, locate the rectangular cutout in the back of the case and install the I/O shield inside. Apply pressure on all 4 corners until the shield snaps in place. Remove the motherboard installation screws and accessory from the hard drive cage. Use 1 screw for every hole in the motherboard. Depending on the size, if the case has standoffs, install them yourself. Place the motherboard on the case, ensuring the I/O shield in the back goes in first. Align the holes on the motherboard with the standoff on the case and secure it using the motherboard screws. I/O install on top. The radiator should be installed on the top of the case, with the fan configuration being exhaust. Place fan flaps on the radiator, ensuring the fan face are visible. Position cable toward the back to run through the case. Align fan hole with the radiator holes. Use 4 longer screws with the 4 washer for each fan. Remove the top panel and dust filter to access the top mounted bracket. Run cable from fans, avoid sticking them inside the case. Tighten 1 screw on the top, left and bottom. Right to hold the radiator while screwing it the rest of the holes.
Plugging the AIO cooler. To install the AIO, insert 2 fisheye screws and 2 thumb screws from the bottom and top of the motherboard brackets. Tighten the screws evenly and move the pump close to the CPU. If using the same AIO, follow the shorter thin cable plugs into the motherboard's pump header. Generally, plug the AIO pump into the pump header on the motherboard to run at max speed. For fans, plug into the CPU fan header on board. If your motherboard doesn't have an AIO pump header, plug the AIO cable into any other fan header. Each fan has 2 cables, one for RGB and the other for fan speed, or the 4-pin fan cable. Case fan install. To install fans, Use 4 thicker screws and ensure the correct fan position. Attach the fan to the mounting bracket of the case and screw it in place from the other side. Add one more exhaust fan in the back of the case. Modular PSU cable install. The process involves connecting a 24-pin ATX cable to the power supply unit, ensuring the clip is facing the whole unit and ensuring the cable is plugged in all the way. Install the EPS cables, which go into the CPU socket labeled CPU, EPS, or 4+4 CPU. The EPS and PCLE cables have the same connection on the power supply side. The Molex and SATA power cables are all plugged into the peripheral and SATA parts labeled peripheral and SATA. Installing PSO in case. To install a power supply, remove the rear side panel from the case and install the bracket on the back of the power supply. Position the fan facing the ventilation of the case, allowing fresh cold air to enter. Position the power supply with the fan facing down. Hard drive installation. The cable connections with the smaller SATA cable plugging into the smaller port and the larger SATA power cable plugging into the larger port. The black SATA cable plugs into the SATA port on the motherboard.
SSD installation. The installation of an SSD is similar to that of a hard drive and can be done in any hard drive tray or an SSD tray. The SSD tray is smaller, specifically designed for SSDs, and is usually attached to the back of the case or the top of the power supply shroud. The SSD is secured using the smallest screws, and the smaller SATA cable is connected to the back of the SSD. The larger SATA power cable is then connected to the motherboard SATA ports. Plugging in front panel cables. To connect your case to your motherboard, follow these steps. Number 1. Find the USB 3 cable which connects the USB 3 header on your motherboard. Number 2. Connect the additional USB ports to the bottom USB header on your boards. Number 3. If you need more USB headers, buy an extension. Number 4. Connect the audio and mic jack connectors to the audio headers on your motherboard. Number 6. Make sure the pins match with the connector and the cable is all the way in. Number 7. If you have any USB-C ports on your case, connect them to the motherboard.
Plugging in AIO fan cables. The Corsair Caplex cooler features a commander core that can accommodate up to 6 Corsair RGB fans. To connect, use the 4-pin cable, RGB cable, pump cable, and a thicker cable. The commander core has 2 cables, USB header on the motherboard and SATA power cable from the power supply. If you don't have 6 fans, use the integrated fan hub. Connect all 4-pin cables to the fan hub on the left and RGB cables to the RGB hub on the right. Plugging in case fans. To add fans on your case, connect them to the motherboard's fan headers.
Front panel JFP1 cables. The final cables from the case are the tiny pins connecting the JFP1 header on the motherboard. These pins are connected to power LED plus or LED minus cables, the power SW cable, the HDD LED cable, and the reset SW cable. The cable should be oriented with the words facing down and the power switch facing up. Plugging in 24-pin ATX. The motherboard's 8-pin socket on the top left of the board is where the CPU cable should be connected, ensuring the clip side is facing towards the right for secure locking. Plugging in CPU or EPS. To ensure a smooth system, ensure the 8-pins EPS socket is located near the top of the motherboard. If your motherboard has an extra 4-pin connector, plug it in. If not, your PC will function normally.
GPU installation. To install a GPU on your motherboard, ensure it is installed on the highest PCLE slot for optimal performance. Remove the bracket from the back of the case that corresponds to the top PCLE slot, removing only 2 brackets for most mainstream GPUs. Remove any protective covers from the side and back of the GPU. Gently slide the GPU into the top PCLE slot until it locks in place. Use a sharp object to release the card, ensuring it doesn't damage the locking tab. Plugging in GPU cables. Plug two 8-pin PCLE cables into your GPU, ensuring they match the pins on your GPU. Position the clip towards the lip and ensure they are fully inserted. Check your PC. Before cable management, ensure PC boots, plug in power cable, switch power supply on, connect monitor to HDMI port, keyboard, mouse, and power button. Cable management. Suggest using zip ties or Velcro straps to group cables together and utilizing the built-in raceway for routing. Once the cable management is satisfactory, the back can be closed with a side panel. Prep for Windows OS install. To install Windows, connect a USB flash drive to a PC with internet access. Download the Microsoft Installation Media Tool, launch it, and follow the on-screen instructions. Select the correct language and select the flash drive. Windows will download the OS. Install Windows on PC. The video explains how to install the operating system on a new PC. It involves plugging in a USB drive, turning on the PC, and ensuring the correct version of the key matches the Windows version. The video also discusses connecting storage devices and ensuring the fastest drive is selected, such as an M.2 or SSD.
How to format your drives. To format your drives, select the desired drive and click on Format. Wait for Windows to complete the setup process, then proceed to the desktop screen. Download, install motherboard drivers. To optimize performance, install drivers and enable XMP profile on a PC with internet access. Download drivers from a compatible USB drive and visit your motherboard website. If using AMD CPU or graphics card, download Auto-Detect software for correct installation.
Enable XMP profile. Restart your PC and navigate to the BIOS. Find the tweaker or overclocking section. Enable the extreme memory profile and enable the XMP optimization option. Enable XMP on the desktop. Check memory speed and lower the clock speed if necessary.
Active storage device. To active additional storage device negative to the Windows toolbar, select Create and Format Hard Disk and check for unlocated device. Click on the desired device, click New Simple Volume, and set a drive letter. The drive becomes active.